The world had plunged into chaos. A devastating pandemic swept across the globe. Economies crumbled, and food shortages grew more severe with each passing day. Yet, it wasn't the pandemic that sealed humanity's fate. The end came with the arrival of monsters, creatures that felt as if they had stepped out of a game. Humanity's last hope lay with metahumans, individuals blessed with extraordinary abilities. But unlike the heroes in novels, these metahumans were too weak to stop the apocalypse. 3 days after the fall, in the middle of the devastated city, stood a lone apartment building, miraculously intact despite the chaos outside. Within its walls, life still clung to an uneasy normalcy. Inside, a young man sat on the floor, casually eating chips. He was alone, utterly alone. The rest of his family was outside in the ruined world. They had poured everything they owned into this apartment, a total of 400 million won, half from a bank loan and half from their life savings. The apartment came with a condition. Someone needed to live there for 2 years to secure certain tax benefits. That someone was him. The sudden apocalypse had turned this place into both his sanctuary and his prison. When he glanced at his phone, the screen showed nothing but silence. The network was completely down, leaving him disconnected and on edge. A sudden movement beyond the window caught his eye. His body tensed as he saw something, a creature, moving towards a building. Before he could react, the monstrous figure crashed into the glass with terrifying force. Panic surged through him, and a scream ripped from his throat. But then, a glowing system window appeared before his eyes. It read that an unauthorized subject was attempting to enter, and confirmed that no one could cross the threshold without the ruler's permission. Relief washed over him. So, that was why he was still alive. This ability, this mysterious protection, had kept the horrors outside at bay. Desperate to test the boundaries of his confinement, he rushed to the front door and tried to force it open. The handle didn't budge. He pounded his fist against the door, frustration boiling into anger. He kicked it repeatedly, but it didn't even rattle. Defeated, he slumped back against the window. It was the 3rd day since the world ended, and he knew, if not for this mysterious system, he would already be dead. Hours later, he sat on the floor, his shoulders slumped, his eyes empty. A new system window hovered in front of him, cold and unfeeling. It stated that the ultimate shut-in could not leave the house. Anger simmered within him. He was trapped, a prisoner in his own sanctuary. His gaze fell to the dwindling pile of food. The fridge had lost power the day before, and the leftovers he had been surviving on were now spoiling. All he had left were a few packets of ramen. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, but a greater fear took root. How long could he survive with so little? Then, abruptly, another system message appeared. It announced that he had hunted a creature called a calican and gained a significant amount of experience points. Confusion flooded him. He hadn't fought anything. How could he have gained experience? His eyes darted to the window, and there outside lay the massive corpse of the creature that had attacked him. The monstrous body lay broken on the ground, swarmed by goblins feasting on its remains. Realization struck. The creature must have died upon colliding with the building's protective barrier. More system notifications followed swiftly. He had acquired a new skill, and nearby loot was being calculated. The concept was surreal, as though he were trapped in a game. The final window announced that the loot calculation was complete. 2.5 million won had been deposited into his system wallet. He stared dumbfounded. He hadn't fought, hadn't risked his life, and yet he had gained experience and currency. It felt impossible. Suddenly, the apartment flickered back to life. Lights glowed, and the familiar hum of power returned. The refrigerator whirred softly, cooling once more. The system declared that half of the house's functions had been restored, an act of mercy to preserve his dignity. Relief overwhelmed him. He rushed to the fridge, opening it to find everything chilling properly again. Overcome with emotion, he sank to the floor, tears spilling freely. For a moment, it felt like he could breathe again. But when he checked his phone, his hope was crushed. The network remained dead. No signal, no connection, no way to reach his family. His eyes fell on something small on the floor, a USB drive. He picked it up, plugged it into his computer, and watched as familiar folders appeared on the screen. Old videos and childhood photos. Memories of his family filled the screen. stirring something raw inside him. Anger, sadness, and determination welled up together. His heart ached with longing, and a single unshakable resolve took root within him. He would find his family, no matter what. Then, another system window appeared, presenting him with a startling new opportunity. He could purchase items from the store at their original prices. Surprise flashed through his eyes. The game-like mechanics of his survival were growing clearer, but questions still burned within him. Why was he chosen for this ability? What was this system? And above all, how would he use it to escape this prison and save his family? The young man's gaze settled on the small shop icon, glowing on the system screen. Driven by curiosity, he clicked it. Immediately, a new window appeared, displaying his current balance in the ultimate wallet. Another prompt followed, asking if he wished to list his first item. Observing how the system tracked his funds, he concluded that this shop was directly connected to his shut-in wallet. Testing the limits of his confinement once more, he attempted to step outside through the window, but as expected, he couldn't cross the barrier. Despite his skill level increasing slightly, his hopes of escape remained unfulfilled. Yet, the small improvement brought excitement. If he continued to hunt monsters and level up, he might eventually unlock a skill that could break this invisible prison. But a troubling question arose. How could he hunt monsters from within these walls? Looking outside, his eyes scanned the sky, where winged creatures soared far beyond his reach. He knew it was foolish to expect another accidental kill like before. Shifting his attention to the goblins scavenging the fallen monster's remains, a thought crossed his mind. Perhaps those goblins could be his next targets. Determined to test his theory, he grabbed a water bottle and hurled it outside. The bottle sailed through the open air, clearing the barrier with ease. A flicker of excitement sparked within him. He could throw objects beyond the building's protective shield. Seizing this newfound advantage, he picked up a heavy dumbbell from his floor. Outside, the goblins were busy carrying off chunks of the slain monster's flesh. Taking a deep breath to steady his aim, he launched the dumbbell towards them. The weight crashed down, but instead of striking a goblin, it hit a piece of the monster's body, scattering gore across the pavement. His heart sank. A missed shot. Worse, he now had only one dumbbell left. Panic gnawed at him. The dumbbell was his only reliable weapon, and he doubted anything else in his apartment could inflict enough damage. Suddenly, a chilling sound cut through his thoughts. Goblin shrieks. Looking down, he saw the creatures glaring up at him with murderous intent. The failed attack had enraged them. Without hesitation, they began charging towards the building's entrance. As fear gripped him, an idea flashed in his mind. He swiftly opened the system window and navigated to the item listing section. Without delay, he listed his last remaining dumbbell in the shut-in store. To his surprise, the system priced the dumbbell exactly as it would have been before the world's collapse. This market, it seemed, still followed the rules of the old world. A prompt appeared, asking if he wished to purchase the listed dumbbell. Without hesitation, he completed the purchase. In an instant, the dumbbell materialized back into his hands. A grin spread across his face. He could buy back his own items indefinitely. Wasting no time, he hurled the dumbbell again, this time striking a goblin directly on the head. The creature collapsed instantly, lifeless. A familiar notification appeared. He had earned experience points and received additional one in his shut-in wallet. Satisfaction surged through him. The surviving goblins, witnessing their comrade's sudden death, grew cautious, their aggression laced with fear. Seizing the momentum, he decided not to hold back. Returning to the shop window, he purchased 3 sets of dumbbells in rapid succession. With renewed determination, he threw another weight. This time, his aim was lethal, a direct headshot, killing another goblin on the spot. The system responded immediately, rewarding him with a new skill, storage. Overwhelmed with excitement, he accessed the newly unlocked feature. The storage opened like an inventory window from a game, and he quickly stored his remaining dumbbells inside. A notification appeared, describing the stored item. Classic non-slip 3 kilograms dumbbell. The system offered him a choice. Would he like to summon the item? Eager to test his new ability, he accepted. The dumbbell appeared instantly in his hand, summoned directly from storage. Joy filled him. He could now summon stored items anywhere, anytime. A mischievous idea formed in his mind. Without wasting a second, he opened the storage window and summoned every dumbbell he had purchased. In a flash, countless dumbbells materialized above the goblins, crashing down like a deadly rainstorm. The creatures shrieked in agony as the iron weights pummeled them relentlessly. The air filled with the sounds of goblin cries and crushing impacts until silence reclaimed the streets. His experience points skyrocketed, his wallet balance surged, and another system prompt appeared, asking if he would like to list additional items. With a victorious smirk and his heart pounding with excitement, he accepted. The protagonist lists 10 items in the shop, including dumbbells to hunt goblins and some grocery items. Afterward, he checks his ultimate shut-in wallet and feels puzzled, thinking he lost 1-1. However, he reminds himself that dignity preservation doesn't cost money. Glancing toward the fridge, he worries about the pending electric, gas, and water bills and blames the goblins for his situation. He recalls how, after dropping dumbbells on the goblins to hunt them, they fled, abandoning their old home. Since then, he has only managed to kill 2. Looking out the window, he searches for another creature to hunt, but finds nothing. His gaze shifts to the sky, where he wishes for a dumb calican to appear. Right after he says this, a calican flies into view. Without wasting time, he gathers some items and ties a mirror to a stick. Holding it out the window, he uses the sunlight to reflect the glare directly into the calican's eyes. The creature notices him and charges in for an attack. The protagonist smiles as his plan works. The calican attacks, but a protective barrier around the building prevents it from causing any harm. Confident, he thinks to himself that killing this creature will help him level up. Suddenly, the calican unleashes a powerful wind attack, making the protagonist nervous. But the wind abruptly stops. He peers down the building, trying to spot the creature, but to his shock, it has landed on the rooftop. The calican aggressively attempts to break through the building's barrier, but fails. The protagonist, feeling uneasy, opens the ultimate shut-in store, scanning through a list of items. He analyzes his past hunts, realizing that loot only appears if the corpses are nearby. In previous goblin hunts, survivors had taken away their allies' bodies, preventing loot calculations. This insight leads him to conclude that loot calculation fails when the distance exceeds a certain limit. Just then, his eyes land on an item, canola oil. A plan sparks in his mind, and he immediately purchases 10 bottles. The bottles materialize before him. Without delay, he heats the oil in a microwave and wraps a cloth around a wooden stick, soaking it in the hot oil. Then, he lists the heated oil as an item in his store. Lighting the cloth on fire, he prepares for battle. Opening the window, he finds the calican still hovering outside. He quickly uses the store to release the heated oil onto the creature, drenching it completely. Without wasting a second, he throws the flaming stick onto the oil-soaked creature. Flames engulf the calican instantly, and it crashes to the ground, burning and screaming in agony. The creature's death rewards the protagonist with a massive amount of experience points and a new skill. The loot calculation begins, and to his astonishment, he receives 10 million won. Suddenly, another system window appears, announcing that house territory expansion has begun. Confused, he looks around, trying to grasp the situation. Something feels strange. He realizes he can now see every corner of the building from where he stands. To his surprise, he notices other people inside the building. Shocked, he realizes they are his neighbors from the house beside him. The protagonist places his hand over his eyes, confused by everything happening around him. Seeing the unfamiliar people inside the building, he suddenly shouts, unable to understand who they are. Just then, a system window appears, displaying information about them. The first man is named Hyungjin, accompanied by his wife and their 2 children. Another system window follows, stating that the beings discovered meet the requirements to become citizens. A prompt appears, asking if he would like to grant them citizenship. Curious, he asks what would happen if he refused. The system replies that any non-citizens would be expelled from the house. Realizing that if he denies them citizenship, they will be exposed to the dangers of monsters outside, he decides to grant all 4 of them citizenship. After granting citizenship, he wonders if he has unlocked any new skills related to it. Checking the system, he discovers a new skill called Ultimate Eye, an ability that allows him to see everything within his house. He then asks the system if there is anything specifically related to the citizens. His eyes fall on a section labeled Citizenship Management. Clicking on it, he finds the names of the 4 people he just granted citizenship to. It also displays the current population, 4/600. Seeing the capacity of 600, he thinks, isn't that too many people? His curiosity leads him to inspect Hyunjin's status. The system shows that he can share in the citizens' earnings of money and experience points. He can even control how much of their gains he receives. Realizing that this is how he can grow stronger, he begins considering quests for them. The system provides an option to create and customize quests. Surprised that he can set the quest details himself, he quickly drafts a simple quest for the 4. Kill 1 goblin within 168 hours. The reward is a small amount of experience points, and initially, there is no penalty for failure. However, he pauses, thinking, why not add a penalty for failure? He instructs the system to set the penalty as death. The quest updates immediately, yet he remains unsatisfied. Sitting on the floor, he realizes that with his authority, he could kill his citizens anytime. The thought troubles him deeply. Unsure of what to do next, he recalls his Ultimate Eye ability and activates it. Through the ability, he observes the 4 conversing. Hyunjin's wife, worried, asks her husband what they should do now. Hyunjin, holding his head, says he needs to go out to find water and tells his wife to stay back with the children. She protests, saying it's too dangerous. Calming herself, she asks if there's another place nearby where they could get water. Hyunjin replies that he wants to try the convenience store nearby, believing it to be large enough to have supplies. At that moment, their children express their thirst, making Hyunjin's worry deepen. He turns to his wife, asking if she trusts him, promising to bring something back. His wife, though saddened, remains silent, her face full of concern. Watching their desperate situation, the protagonist feels sympathy. He realizes their plight is worse than he thought. Without hesitation, he opens his ultimate shut-in store, hoping for a way to store more supplies. He checks his skill window and, to his delight, sees an option to level up his store skill. The system prompts him, asking if he would like to increase the level of the ultimate shut-in store skill. He immediately confirms. With the upgrade, his store capacity expands, and he also gains a 10% discount on all item prices, an added bonus that makes him smile. With 2 skill points remaining, he decides to invest both into upgrading the store and dignity preservation, anticipating more encounters in the future. The store's level increases further, unlocking a new function, the ability to restore old items and make them as good as new. Pleased with his decision, he quickly opens the store. He purchases bottled water and tangerines, intending to help Hyunjin's family. Satisfied with his upgrades, he begins leveling up his other skills as well. He then considers a new strategy. If I provide electricity and water to the neighbors, I can request valuable things in return. Just then, a new notification appears from the system. You can now register vassals. Seeing this, he is puzzled. What exactly is a vassal? Meanwhile, Hyunjin sets out to search for food and water for his family. His wife and children watch him leave, their faces filled with worry. Before stepping out, Hyunjin hugs them tightly, asking them to protect the house until he returns. His child, anxious, asks if he is really going outside. Placing a comforting hand on his child's head, Hyunjin assures them that he will bring back food and water. Suddenly, his daughter cries out in fear, reminding him that monsters are outside. A flashback appears. His 2 children were playing in the park when a group of goblins spotted them. Terrified, they ran, screaming. Just before the monsters could reach them, Hyunjin and his wife rushed in, scooping the children into their arms and escaping. The memory weighs heavily on Hyunjin's mind, and his children begin crying uncontrollably. Their mother tries to calm them down. Hyunjin thinks to himself that this could be the last time he sees his family. Suddenly, a voice from behind the gate calls out, asking someone to open the door. Startled, the family freezes, unsure who or what is outside. The voice repeats, asking if anyone is there. Hyunjin immediately shifts into an attacking stance, ready to defend his family. Fear grips them, uncertain if the visitor is human or monster. Then, the voice abruptly stops. Hyunjin, tense, wonders if whoever it was has left. Without warning, the gate swings wide open. Alarmed, Hyunjin shields his family, standing protectively in front of them as they all scream in fear. However, they soon realize that the figure standing at the entrance isn't a monster, it's a human. To their surprise, the visitor introduces himself. His name is Kim Jae-hyun, and he reveals that he lives right next door. For the first time, the protagonist's name, Kim, is revealed. Kim shows them a bag filled with water and tangerines, offering it to them. He requests to talk for a bit after they've had something to eat and drink. Hyunjin, taken aback by the sudden offer, hesitates briefly. Considering the situation, he realizes there's no reason to refuse. This person might be able to help them. With that thought, Hyunjin invites Kim inside. The kids are hiding behind their dad, their eyes locked on Kim with pure suspicion. They don't trust him at all. Kim sits quietly, peeling an orange. The room is silent and tense. He notices how empty the place is. No food, no water, and complete darkness. The curtains are tightly drawn to keep monsters, especially the crow beast, from spotting them. Without a word, Kim's eyes flash blue. The ceiling light flickers on. Hyunjin looks up, confused by the sudden brightness. But before he can question it, Kim slides a bottle of water across the table. He gestures for Hyunjin to give it to the kids first. Hyunjin passes the bottle, and the kids grab it quickly, drinking with relief. The youngest, and drinks so fast that she starts to choke. Kim immediately offers her an orange. She hesitates, still unsure about him, but the sweet aroma after one peel is too tempting, and hands the orange to her mom, who peels a piece and feeds her. The moment and tastes it, her eyes sparkle. It's sweet, juicy, and perfect. Seeing her sister enjoy it, Nahan quickly asks for a piece too. Their mom gives her one, and her reaction is just the same, pure delight. The tension in the room starts to ease, replaced by something warmer. The children's laughter fills the room, washing away the tension and replacing it with warmth. As Kim watches their joy, a sudden system notification flashes before his eyes. Hyunjin and his wife's trust in him has grown significantly. Meanwhile, their youngest child's trust level has crossed 50, and Seo-hun's trust has reached 57, qualifying her to become a vessel. Kim is stunned by the notification. Although the concept of a vessel is still unclear to him, he knows one thing for sure. He refuses to use a 3-year-old child as his vessel. Turning his thoughts to Hyunjin, Kim realizes that if Hyunjin's trust surpasses 50, he could be a suitable vessel instead. However, Kim quickly remembers a critical limitation. He can only have 10 vessels at a time. With this restriction in mind, he knows he must choose his vessels carefully. Lost in thought, Kim considers how to raise Hyunjin's trust level, which currently sits at only 31. His focus breaks when Hyunjin clears his throat and addresses him. Hyunjin expresses his gratitude, saying Kim could never imagine how much this small act of kindness, providing food and water, means to his family. He then asks if there is any way he can repay Kim for his generosity. Kim responds calmly, suggesting they continue the conversation outside. The scene shifts to the corridor, where Kim immediately asks Hyunjin if he and his family received a system notification regarding citizenship. Hyunjin confirms, stating that all of them received the notification about 30 minutes ago. Kim probes further, asking if they experienced anything unusual when the notification appeared. Hyunjin explains that they were briefly frozen in place, unable to move. The experience was terrifying, but after a short time, they regained control of their bodies. Hearing this, Kim's expression turns serious. He realizes something crucial. If he hadn't granted them citizenship in time, they would have been teleported out of the building. With a clear and firm voice, Kim lays out his offer. If Hyunjin chooses to help him, he will guarantee their survival, providing food, water, shelter, electricity, and, most importantly, protection from the monsters outside. He promises that no creature will be able to harm them. Hyunjin, shocked by this bold claim, questions how such a thing could be possible. But Kim doesn't explain further. Instead, he states that if Hyunjin truly wants his family to be safe, he must trust Kim without hesitation. Kim also assures him that he will never be asked to risk his life. Hyunjin closes his eyes, taking a moment to trust his instincts. Despite everything, something tells him that Kim is not a bad person. However, he raises an important question. What does Kim want in return? Kim's answer is simple. He doesn't want anything material. All he asks is for Hyunjin to do something small for him when the time comes. Relieved that no dangerous demands are being made, Hyunjin's trust in Kim rises significantly. With a warm expression, he even refers to Kim as his brother. Kim acknowledges the gesture with a slight smile, but then shifts the topic. His eyes land on the golf club Hyunjin had been carrying. He curiously asks about its price. Hyunjin, confused by the sudden question, mentions that the golf club was quite expensive. Kim, realizing it might be too costly to list in his store, drops the topic and says they can discuss it another time. Then, Kim asks a critical question. Does Hyunjin remember when the apocalypse began? Hyunjin recalls it clearly. It was a weekend, and he had taken his kids out to play when a horde of goblins appeared without warning. The experience was terrifying, and that day marked the beginning of the end. Kim listens intently, piecing together the timeline. On that same day, he had been at home, isolated in his room. This leads him to a realization. Those who stayed indoors may have escaped the initial wave of destruction. He reflects on the goblins, weak on their own but deadly in large numbers. He recognizes that his citizenship ability could be vital for survival in this chaotic world. Finally, Kim delivers a clear and decisive command to Hyunjin. Find survivors and bring them to this building. The scene shifts to Kim, lounging comfortably on his sofa. His eyes are glued to the system notification, observing as Hyunjin's trust level slowly climbs. It's now at 40, but Kim feels restless. He's eager for it to reach 50. As he waits, his thoughts begin to wander. He wonders how long it will take to level up and finally break free from his barrier to reunite with his family. Could granting more citizenships and leveling up bring him closer to them? The question weighs heavily on his mind. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing sound cuts through the silence. Kim's ears instantly recognize it, a zombie's growl. But alongside it, there's another unfamiliar noise, making him tense up. Startled, he rushes to the window to investigate. His eyes widen at the sight below. A group of 6 or 7 people locked in a life-or-death struggle against a horde of goblins. A wave of unease washes over Kim as he watches the chaos unfold. Judging from their situation, survival seems impossible. The goblins are sure to finish them off. Kim quickly assesses the distance and realizes a problem. They're too far from his building. His summoning ability won't reach them, so he can't drop his deadly dumbbells to help. Panic tightens its grip on him. But then, something unexpected catches his eye. A teenager from the group suddenly launches a baseball with staggering force. The ball rockets through the air and slams into a goblin, killing it instantly. Before Kim can react, another teenager steps forward. She's dressed in a purple tracksuit and armed with a bow. With impressive precision, she releases 2 arrows at once. Both hit their marks, and 2 goblins collapse lifeless. Then, a third teenager enters the fray, a large-built boy wielding a baseball bat. With incredible strength, he leaps high into the air and brings the bat crashing down. A sickening crunch echoes as he obliterates a goblin's skull. His powerful presence radiates main character energy, clearly marking him as the group's leader. The remaining goblins, sensing they are outmatched, scatter and flee in terror. Suddenly, a sharp sound behind her startles the girl in the purple tracksuit. Spinning around, she braces for an attack. But instead of a goblin, she finds something unexpected, a packet of ramen lying on the ground. Confused, she picks it up, puzzled about where it came from. Just then, a strange noise pulls her attention upward. She spots a shadowy figure on the rooftop. It's Kim, waving urgently, signaling her to come inside. She freezes, unsure of the stranger's intentions. But Kim doesn't waver, determined to guide the group to safety inside his building. A sudden knock on his door breaks Kim's focus. Turning around, he finds Hyungjin standing there. Kim gestures for him to come in, but as Hyungjin steps forward, the system stops him cold. A notification appears. Entry denied. Hyungjin is not permitted to enter. Kim frowns, his curiosity piqued. So, even with his permission, no one can enter his personal space. It makes him wonder, could a vessel bypass this rule? But he pushes the thought aside for now. Stepping out of his room, Kim checks his item box. Without wasting a second, he instructs Hyungjin to gather any cheap items from the house that could serve as weapons. When Hyungjin returns, Kim immediately opens his ultimate shut-in store. In a flash, he summons 5 packets of ramen and 5 bottles of water. The items materialize instantly, as though conjured by a 3D printer. Hyungjin stands frozen, eyes wide in disbelief. It's his first time witnessing Kim's mysterious powers, and it leaves him speechless. Kim, unfazed, calmly gathers the ramen and water into a box. Handing it over, he assigns Hyungjin his next mission: deliver the supplies outside the building. Hyungjin's face tightens with concern. He reminds Kim that goblins are still out there, lurking. But Kim waves off his fears, confidently assuring him that every nearby goblin is already dead. Though hesitant, Hyungjin chooses to trust Kim's words. Kim seizes the moment to share his plan. Food has become the world's most valuable currency. Just a single pack of ramen can sell for millions of won. But profit isn't his goal. He's aiming for something much bigger. By providing food to awaken hunters, Kim plans to make them depend on him. Gratitude will turn into loyalty, and they will follow him without question. A sly grin creeps across his face. This is Lil's slavery technique, a strategy where generosity traps people into unbreakable bonds of servitude. Hyungjin, trusting Kim completely, accepts the mission. To add more incentive, Kim creates a system quest: deliver the box of supplies outside. The reward, a small amount of experience points. What Hyungjin doesn't know is that the system quests and rewards are entirely fake, created by Kim himself. But for Hyungjin, it feels real, and the chance to gain easy XP excites him. Gripping his golf club tightly, Hyungjin takes the box and starts his descent. His heart pounds, but he pushes forward, driven by his faith in Kim. Outside, the air is heavy with tension. The world feels deathly silent. All Hyungjin can think about is completing the task and running back inside as fast as possible. He crouches to place the box on the ground, but then crunch. Footsteps. Hyungjin freezes, his body stiff with fear. From the corner of his eye, he catches a dark shadow to his left. His heart pounds and panic seizes his chest. His brain screams the worst: a goblin. Terror floods his mind, and his body moves on instinct. He tries to retreat, but his foot slips. He crashes to the ground. The box tumbles from his grip, and supplies scatter across the pavement. Flat on his back, Hyungjin gasps for air, his face burning red, his body trembling. His eyes blur with tears, and his breath grows short and shallow. The footsteps are getting closer. The sound grows louder, heavier. Hyungjin's lips quiver as he chokes out a plea, his voice shaking, begging the unseen goblins to spare his life. But then, nothing. He forces his eyes open, and what he sees makes his heart skip a beat. No goblins, no monsters. Instead, A group of teenagers and students stand before him, their faces filled with confusion. They're staring down at him, clearly just as puzzled as he is. But one of them, the large-built boy with the baseball bat, catches Hyunjin's eye. There's something oddly ridiculous about him, and Hyunjin's shaken mind can't help but wonder, why the hell does this baseball bad guy look like a toy? The scene shifts, and the system alerts Kim about an unauthorized individual trying to access his space. Kim quickly realizes that the group of teenagers he saw outside is now attempting to enter the building. Closing his eyes, he activates his all-seeing pervy eyes and observes the teenagers at the entrance. The girl in the purple tracksuit notes that this is the same apartment where a strange guy threw ramen at them. The boy with the baseball bat, nicknamed Toy by Kim, casually remarks that anyone throwing food like that must have plenty of supplies. Kim decides to add the boy as a citizen, and is interrupted by the system, which asks if he wants to propose citizenship to the teenagers. The word propose makes Kim pause. If they reject the proposal, his plans to expand his citizen population will fail. Frustrated, Kim realizes he needs a strategy to ensure they accept. Just then, Kim receives a call from Hyunjin through the building's CCTV. An idea sparks in Kim's mind. He quickly updates Hyunjin's task, offer the teenagers food, warm clothes, and a hot bath. Simply put, VIP treatment. Hyunjin accepts the quest and steps outside the barrier to approach the teenagers, offering them free food and water in exchange for accepting Kim's proposal. The mention of food in this harsh world convinces the teenagers, and they agree. Kim sends a proposal, and as soon as they accept, the barrier lifts, granting them entry. The system notifies Kim that his citizen count has increased by 10%, and a major buff activates, boosting experience and gold earned by his citizens. Kim inspects the teenagers' profiles and focuses on the boy with the baseball bat, Han Dong. Kim recognizes him as the one who killed a goblin with a single throw. Han Dong's awakened skill, baseball throw, is a D-rank ability that multiplies his strength tenfold. Kim realizes the power this skill holds. Satisfied with the information, Kim sets the XP distribution at 70% for the teenagers, meaning they keep 70% of the experience points, and he takes 30%. Kim smiles, envisioning his apartment as an auto-hunting farm, grinding XP and gold for him while he relaxes. To his surprise, he notices the teenagers' trust in him is already rising, though he hasn't done anything to earn it. Inside the building, Hyunjin welcomes the teenagers. His wife, confused by the strangers, hesitates but trusts her husband and begins cooking a hot meal. Her quiet acceptance sets a warm, trusting tone. Kim watches everything through his all-seeing eyes, pleased with how smoothly his plan is going. As the group settles in, Han Dong grows curious and asks Hyunjin about Kim. Hyunjin admits he knows little about Kim, only that he's a neighbor he met recently. Hyunjin shares that, although Kim may be odd, he is undeniably kind and has provided them with everything they have: electricity, water, and food. The group begins to understand that in their chaotic world, Kim's actions speak louder than his mysterious nature. Han Dong begins to suspect that Kim might be a powerful metahuman, particularly after noticing the ramen packet Kim gave them tucked in his jacket. He resolves to impress Kim, thinking anyone who can provide electricity and food must possess great power. Meanwhile, Hyunjin asks the two girls in the group if they want to take a shower while the food is prepared. The girls, who haven't bathed in days, are excited. Han Dong is also surprised to realize that the apartment must have functional electricity and a working shower. Hyunjin confirms that there's even hot water, which astonishes the girls. He explains that the hot water is part of Kim's abilities. The girls joke that Kim seems like a god of all traits at that moment. As the group discusses Kim, a teenager wearing glasses approaches Han Dong and asks if he thinks he is more powerful than Kim. Han Dong admits that, given Kim's abilities, no one in their group could surpass him. Suddenly, Toy grabs Han Dong's shoulder and suggests they team up to defeat Kim, reasoning that if they overpower him, they'll get all his food. Han Dong, visibly irritated, calls Toy a lunatic and tells him they should focus on impressing Kim instead. After some discussion, the group agrees that their best plan is to try and earn Kim's favor. The scene then shifts to Yugen, a sad and weak boy whose name was previously unknown. Han Dong introduces him and apologizes, recognizing that his sadness stems from being forced to attend Han Dong's housewarming party when the apocalypse began. During the party, Yugen's grandmother, his only remaining family, was left behind at his house. This is the source of Yugen's distress. Yugen quietly responds that he had no choice but to attend the party, so it's not Han Dong's fault. Han Dong assures the group that they will plan to rescue Yugen's grandmother after eating. Despite this, Yugen remains troubled, fearing that his grandmother might already be dead, possibly killed by goblins. The group brainstorms ways to rescue her when suddenly the door opens. Han Dong instinctively grabs his baseball bat, thinking a goblin has entered. But it's not a goblin, it's Kim, who walks in carrying 2 black bags. His aura radiates power. Han Dong immediately realizes that Kim is the key to solving their problems. Kim steps inside, his serious expression making it clear he's here to help. He confidently declares that he will assist them. The small dining area was filled with an uneasy silence as everyone settled into their seats. The tension in the air was almost tangible, making Hyunjin's wife shift uncomfortably, embarrassed by the cramped space. She softly apologized, explaining that their home wasn't large enough to accommodate so many guests comfortably. Dongin, sensing her discomfort, immediately reassured her, insisting that it was their fault for arriving unannounced. Before she could respond, Hyunjin entered the room carrying several dishes, placing them carefully on the table. As the plates were uncovered, revealing an assortment of homemade delicacies, a wave of surprise washed over the guests. Hyunjin's wife, watching their reactions closely, grew increasingly anxious. Would they enjoy the food? Would it be to their taste? Her hands clenched together under the table as she awaited their verdict. Then, one of the girls picked up a piece of food and took a cautious bite. The room held its breath. A brief moment of silence passed before her face lit up with delight. With genuine enthusiasm, she praised the dish, marveling at how delicious it was. A sigh of relief escaped Hyunjin's wife, her tense shoulders finally relaxing. Smiling warmly, she admitted that the credit belonged to Kim's ingredients. Without them, the meal wouldn't have turned out so well. As Kim absorbed her words, a familiar chime echoed in his mind. A system notification. His eyes flickered as he read the message. Hyunjin's wife's trust level had reached 50. This development pleased him, especially since her trust in him had grown even faster than Hyunjin's. With the initial tension melting away, the meal quickly turned into a lively affair. Laughter and conversation filled the room as everyone savored the flavors, their expressions glowing with rare contentment. One of the girls specifically praised the egg rolls, prompting another to curiously ask if they were similar to those commonly found in Japanese restaurants. Seeing the joy on their faces, Hyunjin's wife couldn't help but feel elated. However, just as she was basking in the moment, a small voice tugged at her attention. Her youngest daughter stood nearby, gazing up with pleading eyes, voicing her desire to taste the delicious egg rolls. With a gentle smile, her mother stroked her forehead, promising to make more for her after the guests had finished eating. But the little girl wasn't satisfied. Her lips trembled, as if she was on the verge of tears. Noticing this, one of the girls at the table waved the child over and offered to share her portion. At this, the little girl's sadness instantly vanished. Excitedly, she ran over and sat beside her new friend, happily accepting a bite. As the familiar taste melted in her mouth, her face lit up with joy, making the atmosphere even warmer. Amidst the cheerful scene, Kim's eyes drifted toward Hyunjin and his wife. They stood at a distance, simply watching the gathering with content smiles. Realizing that they hadn't joined in, Kim invited them to sit and eat. Though initially hesitant, the couple eventually took their seats, blending seamlessly into the lively group. As the meal continued, Kim felt a quiet melancholy settle in his chest. The sight of everyone gathered, sharing food and laughter, stirred old memories. It had been so long since he had experienced such warmth. His thoughts briefly drifted to his parents, wondering if they were safe, if they were eating well. Once dinner concluded, Hyungjin's youngest daughter yawned sleepily, rubbing her tired eyes. Her mother lifted her gently, carrying her off to bed, with her older daughter following close behind. With the children gone, Kim turned to the group, shifting the conversation toward more pressing matters. His gaze locked onto Dongin. "Why?" he asked, his tone firm. "Can't you visit your grandmother's house when it's so close?" Dongin hesitated, his fingers tightening into fists. His voice dropped slightly as he revealed the reason: the goblins. At the mention of the creatures, Kim's expression darkened. Dongin explained that the underground parking lot of the apartment complex had become the goblins' primary base, offering them the perfect hiding spot. He estimated that their numbers had grown into the thousands. A heavy silence fell over the room. Kim's thoughts raced. His ability to restrict enemy movement only worked up to the 30th floor. That meant the goblins had easy access to the building through the parking lot. Dongin continued, his voice edged with unease. Every entrance to the apartment was connected to the underground lot, making it impossible for them to leave safely. The weight of the situation pressed down on the group. But then, a thought crossed Kim's mind. He recalled that there were side roads nearby. Dongin nodded in agreement. That had been their original plan, to escape using those routes. However, something far worse than goblins had stopped them. Kim's breath hitched slightly. Something more dangerous than goblins? Dongin's expression darkened as he recounted their encounter. In the dimly lit surroundings, they had seen a massive beast, something resembling a wolf or a bear. He vividly recalled how the monstrous creature had fought off an entire swarm of goblins. The only reason they had managed to escape was because the beast had been too preoccupied with its battle. Kim's concern deepened. If such a creature was lurking nearby, their escape wouldn't be easy. Dongin admitted that they hadn't gotten a clear look. The darkness had obscured too many details. Kim exhaled slowly. Avoiding the danger forever wasn't an option. Sooner or later, they would have to face it. Dongin, still shaken, admitted that their resources were limited. A girl sitting nearby explained that they relied on bows and even threw baseballs as makeshift weapons. But eventually, they would run out. Kim's eyes gleamed with determination. That problem, at least, had a solution. He asked to see their weapons. When they presented their bows, arrows, and baseballs, Kim immediately added a baseball to his system inventory. Then, he attempted to register the bow, only to be met with a system message. The high-quality compound bow required a payment of 1,530,000 won to be added. Without hesitation, he made the purchase. Looking around at the group, he posed a question. Did all of them know how to use a bow? Silence. Without waiting for an answer, Kim accessed the system store, swiftly purchasing 5 additional bows and a fresh set of arrows. He handed them out, instructing everyone to start practicing immediately, even if they were inexperienced. Now was the time to learn. Another notification popped up. Some of their trust levels had increased. Kim felt a small sense of satisfaction. Slowly but surely, their faith in him was growing. With their new weapons, a renewed sense of hope spread through the group. Dongin, in particular, was overjoyed, knowing that their hunting efficiency had just improved significantly. Another survivor pointed out that they no longer had to risk their lives retrieving used arrows. Kim, however, remained serious. Strengthening their arsenal was only the first step. To have a real chance at success, they needed to thin the goblin numbers first. Dongin, now fully engaged, asked the critical question: when would they begin? Kim's answer was simple: tomorrow, with firm resolve. He assured them that by the next day, they would save Dongin's grandmother. The final question lingered: how? A confident smile played on Kim's lips. They would use bait. The group sat together in a tense huddle, their expressions clouded with uncertainty. The plan was set in motion, yet doubt lingered in the air. Would Kim's strategy work? Could they truly outmaneuver the goblins and secure a path to safety? Despite their unease, hope remained their driving force, pushing them forward. As the silence stretched, a sudden chime echoed in Kim's mind. A system notification flashed before him, informing him that Hyunjin had successfully completed his assigned quest, earning a reward of 30,000 won. The unexpected message made Kim pause. Did Hyunjin really need money right now? He considered it for a moment before deciding that unless absolutely necessary, he wouldn't spend it. Instead, he would save it. Funds could be crucial in strengthening his people. Before he could dwell further on the thought, another system alert appeared. Hyunjin's trust level had reached 50, unlocking his loyalty. With this milestone, all conditions were met, and he was now registered as a vassal. The revelation caught Kim off guard. He hadn't expected this transformation to occur so quickly. As he processed the information, Hyunjin suddenly shuddered, his body reacting to an unknown force. Confusion flickered across his face as a wave of power surged through him. Then, a system message confirmed the change. Hyunjin was now officially Kim's first vassal, earning the title of first servant. Along with this newfound status, he had gained remarkable physical strength, comparable to that of a gorilla. Another message followed, detailing additional benefits. Any experience points and gold Hyunjin earned through hunting would now be doubled. More intriguingly, Kim had unlocked a new ability, Vassal Summon. This skill allowed him to summon Hyunjin to his house, though only after a 2-hour cooldown period. Additionally, he could now use Ultimate Eyes to summon his vassal within 5 meters of his residence. Curious, Kim examined the system's interface and noticed a plus symbol next to Hyunjin's status. When he tapped it, a prompt appeared, spend 1 million won to increase vassal level. The staggering cost left Kim momentarily speechless. He leaned back, running a hand over his face in frustration. Strengthening Hyunjin was tempting, but such an expense required careful consideration. One of the group members noticed his troubled expression and asked if something was wrong. Kim simply shook his head, dismissing their concern. Instead, he turned his attention to Hyunjin, asking how he felt. A wide grin spread across Hyunjin's face as he flexed his hands. He was brimming with energy, as if he had regained the vitality of his youth. Though still bewildered by the transformation, he couldn't deny the exhilarating strength coursing through him. Seeing his enthusiasm, Kim handed him a bow, signaling his role in the upcoming battle. While Hyunjin accepted the weapon, his fingers trembled slightly. His nerves were evident, but Kim reassured him with a knowing glance. Citizens gained a slight experience boost, but vassals? They earned double. If Hyunjin fought, his growth would be exponential. Kim encouraged him to hunt as many monsters as possible. Though still apprehensive, Hyunjin nodded in determination. With the team assembled and the plan set, the mission officially began. Moving with caution, they descended to the first floor of the apartment complex, scanning for signs of life. One of the members questioned whether such a search was necessary. After all, the broken windows and devastation suggested that nothing but death remained. However, Dongin disagreed. He reminded them of Kim's directive. They were not just fighters. They were rescuers. Their primary goal was to find survivors and lead them to safety on the 30th floor. His words reignited their determination, and they pressed forward. Unit 101 was their first stop. As they stepped inside, an overwhelming stench filled their lungs. The room was a macabre scene. Blood smeared across the walls, shattered furniture strewn about, lifeless bodies lying in grotesque positions. The sight turned their stomachs, but they pushed on, searching for any sign of movement. No one was there. Unit 102 offered no better hope. It was the same, a place ravaged by violence, devoid of life. Though disheartened, the team moved on, checking each floor with growing urgency. The second floor yielded the same haunting emptiness. Corpses and destruction painted a grim picture of the residents' fate. Still, they didn't stop. By the time they reached the third floor, exhaustion weighed heavily on them, but they continued. Dongdon knocked on a door, his voice steady as he called out, asking if anyone was inside. Silence answered him. Room after room. The result remained unchanged, no survivors. Then came the fourth floor. Another knock, another call. This time, there was a response. A cautious voice drifted from behind the door, wary and uncertain. A man peeked through a narrow gap, suspicion etched into his weary features. His question was simple, yet heavy with desperation. Were they truly a rescue team? Dongdon nodded firmly, his relief evident. They were here to save as many people as possible. The man hesitated before making a request. Water. His throat was dry, his body weak from days of starvation and fear. Without hesitation, the team handed him a bottle. He accepted it with visible disbelief, staring at them as if they were an illusion. Dongdon took the moment to explain that they were fellow residents, working together to protect the survivors. He invited the man to join them, promising safety on the 30th floor. The man, still hesitant, slowly unlatched the door. Stepping out, he introduced himself as Hong Young-soo. Though his doubt hadn't completely faded, he agreed to follow them. The mention of the 30th floor, however, made Young-soo uneasy. He had expected an escape plan, not a retreat deeper into the building. Just as he voiced his concern, his young son clung to his arm, eyes filled with hope. The boy had been certain that help would arrive, convinced that a rescue team would bring a helicopter to whisk them away. One of the team members gently corrected him, explaining that there was no helicopter, but if they followed, they would at least get food and shelter. Hearing the word shower, Jung-soo's daughter lit up with excitement. It had been so long since she had felt warm water against her skin. That single promise was enough for her. She urged her father to trust the team. Young-soo sighed, finally relenting. With his children's insistence, he decided to go with them. As they continued, more survivors began emerging from their hiding places, lured by the sound of voices and the hope of safety. One by one, they joined the growing group, their expressions shifting from fear to cautious optimism. Kim, monitoring their progress, soon received another system notification. His citizen count had now reached 40, increasing the overall experience and gold earnings by 90%. The pieces were falling into place. The mission was working, but the real battle was yet to come. In the aftermath of their latest rescue mission, Kim's group found themselves experiencing a rare moment of satisfaction. The addition of 40 survivors to their ranks brought a fleeting sense of accomplishment, though Kim knew their challenges were far from over. To maintain order, he decided to house the elderly and children in Hyeongjin's residence, while the remaining survivors would take shelter in the corridors. As the group settled in, Dongdon approached Kim with an update, his expression marked with both relief and frustration. The search had covered nearly the entire apartment complex, yet only 40 people had been willing or able to leave their homes. When Kim inquired whether this was everyone, Dongdon confirmed that they had checked up to the 29th floor. Many, it seemed, had chosen isolation over the dangers of the outside world. Though the number was lower than Kim had hoped, he was still pleased with the progress. Observing the situation, Kim activated his ultimate eyes, scanning his surroundings to ensure everything was in order. His gaze first landed on a man hoisting a chair over his head, seemingly preparing to defend himself. Nearby, Hyeongjin worked alongside 2 women and another man, focused on reinforcing their makeshift shelter. Further away, Dongdon was already deep in preparation for their next move. Kim allowed a rare smile to cross his face. His people were adapting. It was time for the second phase of their plan. Dongdon gathered the group, laying out their next objective, drawing out the goblins lurking underground. Their strategy involved splitting into 2 teams, systematically luring the creatures from the first basement level B1, before moving deeper into B2. Though the plan was sound, concerns quickly arose. Some worried that they could be overwhelmed if too many goblins emerged at once. Others feared that while transporting goblin corpses, they could be attacked from behind. Before Dongdon could respond, one of the women in the group, exuding quiet confidence, assured them that she would personally eliminate any goblin that stood in their way. Dongin reinforced their strategy, reminding them that they now had an abundance of arrows. Their previous struggles wouldn't be repeated. Reassured by his conviction, the team resolved to move forward. Suddenly, movement in the shadows caught their attention. 3 goblins emerged, their sinister grins flashing in the dim light. Without hesitation, the woman loosed 2 arrows, each finding its mark in the skulls of her targets. Dongin took care of the last one with a crushing blow from his bat. A moment of uneasy silence followed. Then a man chuckled, teasing Dongin about carrying a bow when he clearly preferred the weight of his bat. Before Dongin could retort, the woman pointed at the fallen goblins. Their corpses were vanishing before their eyes. Confusion spread among the group as they speculated whether this was another one of Kim's mysterious abilities. Ignoring the distraction, Dongin signaled for the team to advance toward B1. Their faith in Kim, once skeptical, had solidified. Meanwhile, a system notification flickered before Kim's eyes, confirming what he had already sensed. Their trust in him had grown. Kim took a sip of water, absorbing the information. Though he hadn't initially planned it this way, he realized he had become something of a guardian to these people. Then, another notification appeared. One of his citizens, Moon Byung-go, had reached a trust level of 50, meeting the requirements to become a vassal. The development caught Kim off guard. He had expected trust to grow over time, but this was happening faster than he had anticipated. Checking Byung-go's loyalty, his eyebrows lifted in surprise. 88. That was unusually high. Accepting the vassal registration, he braced himself for the consequences. At that very moment, deep in the chaos of battle, Byung-go's body was suddenly engulfed in a brilliant light. The glow stunned everyone, including the goblins, who hesitated, their aggression momentarily replaced by confusion. Panic spread through the group as Dongin, unsure of what was happening, called for a retreat. The team fell back, firing arrows as they moved, their attacks swift and precise. The woman's ability allowed her to fire multiple arrows at once, cutting through the horde. But no matter how many they took down, more goblins poured from the depths of the building. A wave of realization struck the team. These weren't just the goblins from B1. The creatures from B2 had also surfaced, drawn by the commotion. Reaching the gate leading back to safety, Dongin attempted to seal it shut, but goblin hands clawed through the narrowing gap. The group rushed to assist, but the sheer force from the other side was overwhelming. It was a losing battle. Then Hyungjin stepped forward. Channeling his newfound guerrilla strength, he threw himself against the gate, pushing with everything he had. His muscles strained, his face twisted in exertion. He refused to let them break through. He couldn't. Dongin called out, telling him that everyone else had made it. Now, he needed to escape as well. But just as Hyungjin turned to run, the goblins shattered the gate, sending him tumbling to the ground. A sharp pain shot through his leg as one of the creatures grabbed hold, its grip vice-like. Realizing he was trapped, Hyungjin shouted for the others to leave without him. Dongin hesitated, torn between orders and instinct. Before he could decide, another member of the group rushed in, striking a goblin with his bat and reaching for Hyungjin. But the creatures were relentless. More hands grasped at his limbs, dragging him backward. And then, without warning, Hyungjin disappeared. The sudden vanishing act stunned the team. Had the goblins done something to him? No one had time to process the event. The goblins were still advancing. One lunged at the man who had tried to help, but he reacted swiftly, crushing its skull with a powerful swing. With no time to dwell on what had happened to Hyungjin, the man sprinted back toward the group, dodging swipes and narrowly avoiding death at every step. His comrades provided cover, loosing arrows at the goblins, thinning their numbers just enough for him to make it to safety. Though they had escaped immediate danger, the battle was far from over. The goblins were still advancing, their numbers seemingly endless. With Hyungjin's fate uncertain and a new wave of enemies before them, Kim's group knew one thing for certain. The fight had only just begun. Under the pale glow of the moon, a monstrous figure prowled through the darkness, its sharp fangs tearing through goblins with terrifying ease. The creatures, caught off guard, stood no chance against its relentless assault. One after another, they fell, their bodies lifelessly crumpling to the ground. The beast devoured them without hesitation, its fury intensifying with each kill. Then, as if drawn by an unshakable instinct, it turned its gaze toward a distant building, its next target. Malice burned in its eyes as it made its decision. Everyone inside would perish. Meanwhile, in a completely different space, Hyunjin collapsed onto the ground, his breathing ragged from exhaustion. Before him stood a man calmly adjusting his glasses, his sharp eyes scanning their surroundings. It was Kim. He stepped forward, offering a hand to Hyunjin. Kim had been watching everything unfold. Using his ultimate eye ability, he had observed the battle from afar, waiting for the perfect moment to intervene. When Hyunjin's escape had seemed impossible, he had acted, summoning him to safety just before the goblins could overwhelm him. Hyunjin took a moment to catch his breath, then glanced down at his leg, noticing the fresh wound trailing along his calf. Though the pain was sharp, he dismissed it, assuring Kim that it was nothing he couldn't handle. Kim, however, remained silent, analyzing the situation. Injuries, no matter how minor, could prove disastrous in their current environment. Making a mental note, he decided that medical supplies needed to be prioritized. Leaving Hyunjin to rest, Kim returned to his quarters. He retrieved his medical box, methodically organizing its contents while contemplating his limited inventory space. With only 40 available slots, including every individual supply was impractical. Then a thought struck him. If he combined all the necessary medical tools into a single first aid kit, he could list it as one item rather than several. With swift efficiency, he arranged the supplies, ensuring they were packed for optimal use. Returning to Hyunjin, Kim gestured for him to reveal his wound. As he carefully cleaned the injury, Hyunjin winced but remained silent, enduring the stinging sensation without complaint. The quiet moment was soon interrupted by a sudden system notification. Trust and loyalty levels had increased. Hyunjin, feeling a renewed sense of camaraderie, expressed his gratitude. Kim gave a simple nod before turning away. As he exited, Hyunjin's thoughts drifted to their scattered teammates. Were they still holding their ground? Had they made it to safety? Kim, too, wanted answers. Closing his eyes, he activated his ultimate eye, sending his awareness down to the lower floors. The battle was still raging. Goblins swarmed the area, their crude weapons swinging wildly as they clashed against his team. Among them, the girl with the bow stood her ground, her arrows finding their targets with lethal accuracy. Nearby, others engaged in close combat, striking down goblins one by one. His focus shifted to a lone figure sprinting through the battlefield. The runner was dangerously exposed, but his teammates provided cover, launching coordinated attacks to keep the goblins at bay. Two creatures suddenly leaped toward the fleeing figure, their jagged claws poised to strike. But before they could land their attack, Byunggo's arrow pierced through their skulls, dropping them instantly. Without pausing, he surged forward, cutting through the remaining enemies with newfound strength. Kim observed in silent intrigue. Byunggo's movements were far more precise, his attacks devastatingly effective. His teammates, too, had taken notice, watching in disbelief as he tore through their enemies with ease. Then, another system window appeared before Kim. Byunggo had acquired a new ability, teleportation. The ability's description detailed its mechanics, a movement skill relying on mental energy, allowing the user to teleport to any visible location. The greater the distance or the number of people transported, the more strain it would place on the user. Kim smirked. This was a valuable development. Making Byunggo his vassal had proven to be a wise decision. Down below, the battle reached its climax. Dongin moved with urgency, issuing orders with clear precision. He turned to one of the members, confirming that the extension socket was prepared. A nod of confirmation followed. Next, he checked the status of the water tank. The girl managing it signaled that everything was in place. With the preparations complete, Dongan called for Byung-go. Without hesitation, Byung-go leaped across the battlefield, joining the others at the designated position. At that exact moment, the group released the water from the tank, drenching the goblins in an instant. Dongan wasted no time, shouting for the final step to commence. A teammate activated the switch. Electricity surged through the water, creating a deadly current that spread across the soaked goblins. Their bodies convulsed as the voltage overwhelmed them, their shrieks of agony filling the air before they collapsed, lifeless. Kim's system interface lit up with notifications. A substantial amount of EXP had been gained, and his balance in the Ultimate Shut-In's wallet had increased by 334,464 won. His skill level had also improved, and with it, a new ability had been unlocked. Just as he was processing this, a black circle began forming beneath his feet, slowly expanding outward. Kim watched as the system executed its next action, absorbing the lingering energy of the fallen goblins. Another notification appeared, confirming the detection of hostile entities and initiating their removal. In an instant, the remaining goblins were wiped out. Kim stood still as another surge of power coursed through him. He had leveled up once again. In the dimly lit corridors of another floor, a cluster of goblins loitered, unaware of the impending doom lurking behind them. One of the creatures stiffened, a primal instinct warning it of a presence in the shadows. Slowly it turned, only to find itself face to face with an enormous beast. Before it could react, the monstrous entity lunged, its claws slicing through flesh with merciless precision. The goblin's body hit the ground, lifeless. Panic spread like wildfire among the remaining goblins. Their shrieks echoed through the hall as they scrambled to react. The beast wasted no time. It charged forward, tearing through them with lethal efficiency, its massive claws rending flesh and bone as if they were paper. Some goblins attempted a counterattack, striking from behind with whatever crude weapons they possessed. The blows landed, but the beast remained unfazed. With a powerful swipe, it sent them hurtling across the room. Sensing an opportunity, a handful of goblins seized a moment. Climbing onto creature's back, they sank their jagged teeth into its thick hide, their frenzied bites drawing darkened blood. A few even reached its face, clawing and gnawing with desperate aggression. The pain ignited a wrath deep within the beast. With an earth-shaking roar, it thrashed wildly, sending the goblins flying. Then, in one devastating motion, it wiped out the remaining foes, leaving nothing but lifeless husks in its wake. As the dust settled, a system notification materialized. She has been granted citizenship. Something shifted within the beast. A strange transformation began, its massive form rippling as if something within struggled to break free. Then, like a shedding cocoon, the beast's monstrous exterior peeled away, revealing a human figure emerging from within. As the transformation completed, a young woman collapsed onto the floor unconscious. Far above, Kim had been watching everything unfold through his ultimate eye ability. His sharp gaze lingered on the motionless figure, curiosity flickering in his mind. Who is she? A new system window materialized, displaying information about the girl. Oh Yanju, the ability she had wielded moments ago, was identified as Werbear. Another prompt elaborated. Werbear transforms a user into a beast, enhancing all physical attributes and regenerative abilities to their peak. Kim processed the revelation in silence. This woman was a level 33 combatant with an A-rank ability, an undeniable force. The implications of such power intrigue him. Moments later, another notification appeared, detailing updates on his teammates. Dongan and Hiren's trust had reached 50, unlocking their loyalty. Following that, a separate message confirmed Kong Deox's loyalty had surpassed 30, fulfilling all requirements to be registered as a vassal. Without hesitation, Kim authorized the registration. Immediately, Deox's status changed. He was now one of Kim's vassals, his awakened ability, Iron Knight, fully integrated. A new system prompt detailed his skill. The user can summon a halberd and don full-body iron armor. Kim leaned back in contemplation. The structure of the vassal system intrigued him. Each vassal's level seemed to be influenced by the rank of their awakened ability. He reviewed his roster. Hyunjin, strength of a gorilla, level 20. Deoksu Iron Knight, level 25. Byunggo Teleport, level 30. Patterns emerged, but inconsistencies remained. If Byunggo had gained an A-rank ability based on his loyalty value, why had Hyunjin, who displayed even greater loyalty, only obtained a C-rank ability? Deoksu had received a B-rank ability with a loyalty value of 31. So what truly determined these rankings? This question gnawed at him. The vassal system was limited. Only 10 slots available, so registering individuals with the potential for high-ranking abilities was crucial. Yet the mechanics behind ability assignment remained unclear. Were these ranks determined randomly, or was there a deeper logic at play? A sudden system notification interrupted his thoughts. The metahuman is now able to freely move between floors, corridors, and elevators. Kim let out a quiet exhale, refocusing on the task at hand. He needed answers, but for now his priority was securing the girl. With a flicker of thought, he issued a silent command. On the lower levels, the scene was still settling. His teammates worked swiftly, securing the defeated goblins with ropes. The aftermath of the battle left them in a daze, struggling to comprehend the sheer power they had just witnessed. Dongan, in particular, found himself deep in thought. Until now, he had failed to grasp the true extent of Kim's influence. Moments flashed through his mind. Hyunjin's casual mention of hot water, an impossible luxury in their circumstances. Then there was Hyunjin's wife, speaking of how their food supplies had been mysteriously provided by Kim. And now this, the latest in a series of impossible feats. Everything pointed to one undeniable conclusion. Kim's abilities were far beyond anything they had imagined. His gaze shifted to Byunggo. The man had once been withdrawn, hesitant, lacking confidence. Yet after meeting Kim, something had changed. Now, he wielded his abilities with remarkable efficiency, showing a level of power that defied his former self. Dongan had underestimated Kim. He realized now, regardless of what powers Kim possessed, one fact remained constant. Kim was a force to be feared. Elsewhere, Hyunjin sprinted to the corridors, moving toward the B2 floor as instructed. His footsteps echoed in the silent halls as he prepared to retrieve the unconscious girl. And far above, Kim continued to observe. His ultimate eye remained locked onto her form, analyzing every detail, calculating his next move. A child sat on the cold floor, lost in his world play, his tiny hands clutching a worn-out toy. His laughter echoed softly through the dimly lit space. Then a familiar voice called his name, his mother. His face lit up with joy as he sprang to his feet, eager to run into her arms. But just as he took his first step, his mother's expression twisted into sheer horror. Her gaze locked onto something behind her son. 3 monstrous figures lurking in the shadows, their twisted forms poised to strike. A chilling realization washed over her. Before the child could understand what was happening, his mother's desperate scream rang out, urging him to run. But it was too late. The creatures lunged. Clawed hands tore through the air, and in an instant, his small figure disappeared beneath their merciless attack. His mother's eyes brimmed with tears as she watched in helpless agony. And then the nightmare ended. A sharp gasp pierced the silence as a young woman jolted awake, drenched in sweat, her breath ragged. Her body trembled, remnants of the horrifying vision still gripping her mind. It had felt too real, too vivid. This was the same woman whom Kim had instructed Hyunjin to bring to him. As she sat upright, clutching her throbbing head, footsteps approached. She blinked, trying to steady her racing thoughts as a figure came into focus. A man stood before her, calm, calculating. Kim. He extended a hand toward her, but before she could take it, a sudden thought struck her. Her gaze sharpened. The memory of the goblin slaughter flashed in her mind. The swift, precise decapitations. Could it be him? Her voice wavered as she questioned him. When he confirmed it, she remained silent for a long moment, staring at him as though weighing something within her mind. Then, something inside her cracked. Her fingers clenched into fists, trembling with emotion. If he possessed such power, then Perhaps tears welled up in her eyes as a plea escaped her lips. She begged him, please save her son one day. A system notification materialized in response. Yeonju's trust has increased significantly. Grief consumed her. She sobbed, unable to contain the overwhelming sorrow of her loss. Watching her, Kim's mind churned. The pain in her eyes told him everything. She had lost her child to the goblins. As he stood there, uncertain of what he could do for her, an unexpected system prompt flashed before him. Quest granted. Kill 1,000 goblins. No time limit. No penalty. Reward. Resurrection of Yeonju's son. Kim's breath caught. His eyes scanned the notification again. Reviving the dead? Could such a thing truly be possible? But just as quickly as the message appeared, another followed. Quest cannot be granted. Confusion gripped him. His mind raced, considering the implications. Then, a third notification surfaced. Insufficient funds to generate the quest. Please acquire the required amount before attempting again. Kim stilled. The realization hit him like a wave. So, resurrection is possible, but only if he has enough money. A strange sense of determination settled over him. For now, he didn't know the exact amount required, but the possibility alone changed everything. He turned his attention back to Yeonju, who was still sobbing quietly. Calmly, he spoke. He told her that there might be a way to bring her son back. Her tear-streaked face lifted. A flicker of hope ignited in her eyes. Could he really mean it? Was there truly a chance? Kim reassured her. It wasn't something he could do immediately, but the possibility existed. The weight of those words sent a tremor through her. For the first time since her son's death, hope wasn't just an illusion. With newfound resolve, she declared that she would do whatever it took. Whatever he asked of her, she would obey. Kim considered his next move carefully. His current team consisted of 3 awakened fighters, Dongin, Deoksu, and Byunggo. If Yeonju, a level 33 warrior, joined them, their strength would multiply significantly. His long-term strategy was forming. He needed all 7 of them as vassals. A subtle smile crossed his lips as he extended his hand toward her once more. This time, she took it. He led her toward his group, where introductions awaited. Dongin stepped forward first, offering a firm handshake. Yeonju accepted, her expression shifting slightly as she recognized him. Her eyes studied him for a moment before she remarked on his skill, the way he had taken down goblins with nothing but a thrown baseball. The observation caught him off guard. Her gaze then flickered toward the girl standing beside him. A knowing smile touched Yeonju's lips. She mentioned the girl's use of a bow, causing the archer to tense. The girl hesitated before questioning how Yeonju knew so much about them. Instead of answering directly, Yeonju lifted her hands, mimicking the gesture of a bear, and then her body began to shift. Muscles expanded, spread across her skin, and within moments, the beast from before stood in her place. Gasps filled the room. The girl stepped back in shock. Yeonju let out a light-hearted chuckle. Not a beast, she corrected. A bear. Realization dawned on the group. She had crossed paths with them before. She had helped them before. It had never been mere coincidence. Dongin exhaled, processing the truth. Their previous encounters now made sense. At that moment, Kim stepped forward, seamlessly taking control of the conversation. He was glad they were already familiar with each other. It would make things easier. Without wasting time, he announced their next mission. The plan to rescue Byunggo's grandmother would commence at dawn. With the goblin numbers reduced, success was now within reach. However, this time there would be a change in the lineup. Mr. Choi, due to his injuries, would not be participating. In his place, Yeonju would be joining them. A spark of determination flared in her eyes. This was her chance. Kim concluded the meeting, instructing everyone to prepare for the operation. As the team dispersed, he called Byunggo and Deoksu aside. Once the 3 of them stood alone, he regarded them with a serious expression. They had no idea why he had summoned only the 2 of them, but they were about to find out. Kim faced Byunggo and Deoksu, his expression serious as he asked if they knew why he called only the 2 of them. Both looked at each other, confused. Byunggo hesitated before suggesting that it might be related to their newly awakened powers. Hearing this, a faint smile crossed Kim's lips as he confirmed Byung-go's guess. He explained that both of them had recently awakened powerful abilities. Byung-go's ability was teleport, while Deoksu's was Iron Knight. In his mind, Kim reflected on the importance of understanding their abilities fully before the upcoming mission. Without wasting time, he opened a system window and began creating a new quest for them. The quest's objective was simple: demonstrate their awakened abilities. It had a time limit of 1 hour, with the reward being increased strength and the failure penalty requiring them to sleep outside. Satisfied with the challenge, Kim believed this quest would help both of them refine their powers. Deoksu, unable to hide his excitement, eagerly asked if this meant he was now stronger than Dongan. Kim confirmed it, which only fueled Deoksu's enthusiasm. Curiosity sparked. Deoksu then questioned what exactly the Iron Knight ability allowed him to do. Kim informed him that he could summon iron armor and a halberd as part of his new power. Before Deoksu could respond, Byung-go suddenly vanished from his spot. Deoksu, startled, scanned the area in confusion until Byung-go reappeared a moment later. The successful use of his teleportation ability left Byung-go overjoyed, knowing it worked perfectly. At that moment, a system notification appeared, confirming that Byung-go's trust and loyalty had increased. Grateful, Byung-go expressed his thanks to Kim. Kim, however, adopted a more serious tone, warning Byung-go that reaching his grandmother's location wouldn't be easy. There was no guarantee that he could control his ability reliably. The successful teleportation could have been a fluke, and without fully understanding its limitations, such as range or potential penalties, using it recklessly would be dangerous. Hearing this, Byung-go grew anxious but nodded in understanding. While they spoke, a sudden shift in the atmosphere caught their attention. Both turned to see an imposing figure standing nearby, a towering knight clad in iron armor, gripping a massive halberd. It took them a moment to realize that the knight was Deoksu, who had successfully activated his Iron Knight ability. The sight of his transformation filled Deoksu with pride, and his excitement grew. Another system notification appeared, confirming that Deoksu's trust and loyalty had also increased. Kim then pointed toward a distant floor and asked Byung-go if he could teleport to that location. Though slightly nervous, Byung-go resolved to try. At that moment, a system window emerged, assigning him a new quest. The objective was to teleport to the rooftop of Building 113 within 3 minutes. The reward promised increased teleport proficiency, while the failure penalty remained the same: sleeping outdoors. Taking a deep breath, Byung-go closed his eyes, focusing intensely. Deoksu, eager to support his teammate, cheered him on from the side. Moments later, Byung-go opened his eyes and vanished, successfully teleporting to the distant floor. Looking through a nearby window, he raised his hand triumphantly toward Kim and Deoksu, declaring his success. A system notification confirmed that Byung-go had completed the quest. Kim smiled in satisfaction, but his expression quickly changed as Byung-go suddenly collapsed, falling unconscious where he stood. Alarmed by the sight, Kim immediately activated his summon vassal ability, bringing Byung-go back to their location. His condition was visibly weakened, pale and exhausted from the strain of his ability. Kim and Deoksu carefully laid him on a bed to rest. As Kim checked the system window, he reflected on the cause of Byung-go's sudden collapse. It was clear that the teleportation had drained a significant amount of stamina, leaving him too weak to stand. Deoksu, worried, asked if Byung-go would be all right. Kim reassured him, explaining that while the ability had pushed Byung-go's limits, he would recover after some rest. This outcome likely occurred because he wasn't yet accustomed to using the teleportation ability. Turning his attention to Deoksu, Kim asked if he exercised regularly. The unexpected question confused Deoksu, who had no idea why Kim was asking. Without providing an explanation, Kim created a new quest for him. This time, the task was exercise while wearing armor, completing 100 push-ups and 100 squats within 10 minutes. The reward was increased strength, and the failure penalty, as usual, was sleeping outdoors. Without hesitation, Deoksu began his training. The added weight of the iron armor made each movement a struggle, but he pushed through the pain. After an exhausting effort, he finally completed the task. A system notification appeared, confirming the quest completion. Observing Deoxy's performance, Kim silently speculated whether his remarkable stamina was linked to an innate affinity for sports. This resilience made him an ideal combatant. Just then, a new system notification appeared, catching Kim's attention. The vague message left him puzzled, uncertain about its purpose. As Deoxy finished his exercises, he turned to Kim and asked if the training was over. Kim smiled, acknowledging his hard work and granting him permission to rest. Another system notification followed, confirming, "Evaluation complete. Your strength has increased slightly." Kim's eyes widened as he felt a subtle, yet distinct boost in his physical power. A grin spread across his face as realization dawned. This unexpected development changed everything. The scene shifts to the next day, deep within one of Busan's alleys. Dongan and his group are running at full speed, desperately trying to escape as a swarm of goblins chases him relentlessly. Amidst the chaos, Deoxy turns back, his eyes burning with anger. Without hesitation, he activates his Iron Knight ability, his body transforming into an armored warrior. Wielding his powerful weapon, he charges forward and begins striking down the goblins one by one. However, more goblins appear, their numbers growing rapidly. Seeing them rushing toward him, Deoxy momentarily hesitates, feeling the pressure of the overwhelming enemy forces. Suddenly, arrows rain down from above, piercing through the goblins. The attacker is revealed. It's Byungo, from a distance. He calls out to Deoxy, reminding him not to focus on the ones that have already passed him. Deoxy quickly regains his confidence and readies himself for battle once again. The goblins, now terrified, hesitate before turning around and fleeing in fear. Frustrated, Deoxy yells after them, challenging them to come back and fight. Meanwhile, the goblins stop in their tracks, their expressions shifting from fear to sheer terror. In front of them stands a massive beast, its intimidating presence making them tremble. Some goblins even start crying, realizing they are trapped between two deadly forces. With Byungo, Deoxy, and the beast working together, they systematically take down the remaining goblins, eliminating every last enemy in their way. Amidst the battle, Dongan shouts to Byungo, urging him to go to his grandmother immediately. Without wasting a second, Byungo sprints away, determined to reach her as fast as possible. At the same time, Kim receives a system notification informing him that Yeonju has completed the quest. Another notification follows, indicating that an evaluation is in progress. Calmly sitting and eating, Kim watches the events unfold. Moments later, another notification pops up. Evaluation complete. 132,966 won has been deposited into the ultimate shut-in's wallet. Reading this, Kim pauses in surprise. Money? This was a completely different reward from what he had received before. As he continues eating, Kim reflects on the situation. When Deoxy completed his quest, his strength increased, but this time, the reward was something else entirely. Could the additional rewards be random? Perhaps the reward became bigger, because the quest was more difficult than before. Soon, another notification appears. Byungo has completed the quest, along with a message stating that Byungo has exhausted all quest attempts for the day. The system then begins evaluating his completed quest. As Kim waits for the results, the final notification appears. Jackpot was struck. Congratulations. Seeing this, Kim's eyes widen in shock. Kim wonders what kind of jackpot he has hit. A system notification immediately appears, confirming that he's received 1 skill point. Seeing this, Kim acknowledges that it's not a bad reward. Meanwhile, Byungo suddenly teleports to another location. Panic sets in as he rushes toward his grandmother's room. Pushing open the door, he freezes for a moment, his heart pounding. His grandmother lies still on the bed, asleep, filled with worry. Byungo quickly moves to her side, checking to make sure she's okay. Just then, his grandmother opens her eyes, weakly reaching for his hand. She calls out his name, recognizing him. Overwhelmed with emotion, Byungo's eyes well up with tears. Without hesitation, he embraces her tightly, apologizing as tears stream down his face. He regrets taking so long to get to her, feeling guilty for the delay. At the same time, deep in his heart, he silently thanks Kim for making this moment possible. At that moment, a system window appears before Kim. It notifies him that Byung-go's trust has increased, and his loyalty has reached 100. This sudden update catches Kim off guard. Curious, he checks his list of vassals, noticing a plus icon beside Byung-go's name. Realizing what this means, Kim is surprised that leveling up vassals is possible in this way as well. Without wasting any time, he clicks the plus icon, eager to see the cost of leveling up Byung-go. Almost instantly, multiple system notifications appear. The messages inform him that he does not have enough money to proceed with the level up. The required amount is a staggering 100 million won. Until he gathers more funds, leveling up Byung-go is impossible. Kim sighs in frustration, placing a hand on his head. He apologizes to Byung-go, deciding that at the very least, he will continue to give him quests daily. Just then, an unexpected noise reaches Kim's ears. He becomes alert, realizing that it's coming from the elevator. Suspicion grows in his mind as he wonders who it could be. Without hesitation, he activates his ultimate eye ability, allowing him to see through the walls. In the corridor, two individuals stand outside a door, knocking and asking if anyone is inside. The door soon opens, revealing Hyungjin's wife. She looks at them with curiosity and asks who they are. The young woman introduces herself as Dabin, then gestures toward the man beside her, introducing him as Miho, her younger brother. She explains that they live in unit number 1701. Hearing this, Hyungjin's wife is slightly taken aback and cautiously asks why they have come. Dabin hesitates for a moment before admitting that she is here to ask for help. When asked what kind of help she needs, Dabin lowers her voice, acknowledging that her request might sound shameless. Then, with a hint of nervousness, she finally asks if she could take a shower. For a brief moment, Hyungjin's wife is left speechless by the unusual request. However, she quickly regains her composure and invites both siblings inside, allowing them to use the shower. Dabin expresses her gratitude, relieved that her request was not rejected. Meanwhile, Miho, carrying a box, asks where he should put it. Curious, Hyungjin's wife asks what's inside. Dabin explains that the box contains food and some other random items. To prove her words, she opens the box, revealing its contents. Seeing this, Hyungjin's wife smiles, clearly pleased. Dabin admits that she felt obligated to offer something in return, considering that she was entering a stranger's home with an unusual request. As her gaze wanders, she notices bows and a baseball bat placed aside. Curious, she asks if they belong to the apartment owner. Hyungjin's wife hesitates for a moment before responding. She explains that they do belong to a resident of this apartment complex, though the situation surrounding them is a bit complicated. From a distance, Kim continues watching everything unfold through his ultimate eye ability, observing their actions and words. He concludes that for now, they don't seem like bad people. Kim decides that he will visit them later, as he needs to talk to them. He considers the possibility of asking for their help in rescuing survivors from other apartment buildings. Suddenly, multiple system notifications appear before him. The messages confirm that he has hunted a red tiger, gained a great amount of EXP, increased his skill level, and even acquired a new skill. Confused by these sudden updates, Kim quickly activates his ultimate eye ability to check the battlefield. His vision reveals a shocking sight. Dongan and his party are heavily injured, having just defeated a massive tiger. Among them, Yeonju lies on the ground, gravely wounded. Witnessing this, Kim struggles to understand what is happening and lets out a loud scream. Another system window appears, notifying him that he has discovered people eligible for citizenship and asking if he would like to grant it. Realizing that there are still survivors who aren't citizens yet, Kim immediately accepts. A new notification follows, confirming that citizenship has been granted and that Kim now has 50 citizens. Since the number has reached a certain threshold, all citizens unlock a new skill, Power of Trust. Kim quickly activates his ultimate eye again, scanning for severely injured survivors. His sight falls on Byung-go, carrying his grandmother on his back, running desperately. At the same time, Deoksu is carrying Yeonju, who is badly wounded. Seeing this, Kim's heart sinks. Of all people, why did it have to be Yeonju in such critical condition? As Byung-go and Deoksu rush forward, a group of goblins blocks their path. Before panic can set in, their teammates fire arrows, swiftly eliminating the goblins and clearing the way. One of the team members suddenly exclaims that their body feels incredibly light. Dongin also notices the change, realizing that he no longer feels out of breath. Kim receives yet another system notification, revealing that power of trust increases all stats based on their trust value percentage. Pondering over this new revelation, Kim realizes something. Dongin and his party all have at least 50 trust points and above. If all their stats, stamina, strength, reflexes, and more have increased by 50%, then their sudden surge in power makes perfect sense. Meanwhile, Byung-go also begins to understand what's happening. He recognizes this as Kim's power at work. Another notification appears, stating that Gaeong's and Hiren's loyalty has surpassed 30, fulfilling the requirements to become vassals. Without hesitation, Kim registers both of them as his vassals. As a result, visible changes start appearing in their bodies. Their abilities awaken. Gaeong gains piercing, while Hiren acquires poison mist. At that moment, a new wave of goblins approaches. Without wasting time, Gaeong raises her bow and fires an arrow. In a single shot, all the goblins are wiped out. Stunned, she stares at her hands, trying to comprehend her newfound strength. A notification reveals the details of her ability. Piercing consumes mental strength to fire a penetrating arrow. Kim, seeing potential for skill, assigns her request. Piercing, hunt 10 goblins within 10 minutes. The reward is increased proficiency, while failure results in fatigue. While analyzing the ability, Kim notes that piercing is slightly more complex than other skills. Next, Hiren's ability, Poison Mist, is explained. This skill creates a deadly poisonous fog at the cost of mental strength. Kim evaluates the ability carefully. Although it a powerful B-rank skill, if misused, it could harm teammates as well. He decides to keep this in mind and analyze it further later. A new system notification appears, informing him that Gaeong has completed her quest and the results are being evaluated. Kim decides to shift his focus to citizens on the lower floors. Activating Ultimate Eye, he observes a man holding a bottle, seemingly gathering water. Kim recognizes that this is a smart move. The man is securing drinking water in advance, meaning he and his group are self-sufficient in gathering food and water. That explains why they never needed to join Dongin's party. His gaze then falls on a young woman. Recognizing her, he quickly moves toward her. A system window appears, revealing her identity. Dejung, the same girl who earlier requested a shower at Hyungjin's wife's house. However, what truly shocks Kim is her ability, healing. Realizing this, Kim immediately approaches her, recognizing the significance of finding a healer. Kim stands near their gate, carefully pushing it open, but stops when he notices a lock securing it. A slight frustration sets in, but then he suddenly remembers he has a new skill. A system notification appears, revealing the details of his ability. Invisible Hand. The description states that he can summon an invisible hand and control it at will. Excited by this discovery, Kim closes his eyes and focuses, using his new skill to create a tool capable of cutting the lock. With precision, he breaks the lock and swiftly pushes the gate open. Without hesitation, Kim rushes inside, heading straight toward the girl lying unconscious on the ground. He attempts to wake her, but there is no response. Observing her closely, Kim realizes that her condition is worse than expected. Signs of severe dehydration are evident. Desperately searching for something to help, his eyes land on a bottle of water nearby. Refocusing on the girl, Kim understands that saving her is a priority right now. Checking his system window, he finds a quest notification. Breathe once. The reward for completing it is dehydration recovery. The system confirms that Dejung has completed the quest, and 10 million won has been used for it. Immediately, the system begins healing her. Slowly, her eyes flutter open. She looks at Kim with confusion and asks who he is. Kim introduces himself, explaining that he lives in a unit above hers. Still in shock, she questions how he got inside. Kim informs her that she was in bad condition, so he forcefully opened the door to help her. Hearing this, the girl remains silent, but suddenly tears start welling up in her eyes. Without warning, she breaks down, crying uncontrollably. Kim watches in confusion, unable to understand why she is crying. He then speaks up, apologizing but urgently requesting her help. One of his teammates is severely injured, and he needs her assistance. The girl stares at him, lost in thought. She wonders what he is talking about. Is she really capable of helping someone? The realization hits her. He is asking for treatment help, but how does he know she's a nurse? Considering that Kim doesn't seem dangerous, she decides to play along and observe the situation. After thinking for a moment, she finally agrees to help and asks where she needs to go. Kim checks the system window, where a new quest has appeared. Use heal to treat the injured Yeonju. The quest has a time limit of 1 hour, with the reward being improvement and no failure penalty. After reading the details, Kim turns to the girl and asks her to rest for now. He assures her that he will bring the injured person here. The girl looks at him, confused, when suddenly a few oranges roll toward her. Surprised, she shouts at Kim to stop and demands to know what's going on. Kim, smiling, tells her that he'll explain everything later. Right now, she is too weak and needs a rest. Without saying anything further, he leaves the room, holding the oranges in her hands. The girl wonders if she is dreaming. Meanwhile, Kim returns to his room. As soon as he enters, a system notification pops up. Jung's trust has increased. Seeing this, Kim realizes that she probably didn't trust him at first. After all, it would be hard for anyone to trust a stranger who suddenly broke into their house. As he looks out his window, his eyes widen in shock. Outside, a tiger is chasing his teammates. Fear grips him as he recognizes the beast. It's a red tiger. Kim's heart pounded as he realized there was another red tiger. Fear gripped him as he watched his teammates flee for their lives. Amid the chaos, one of the girls suddenly tripped and fell to the ground. Panic spread among the group as they saw the tiger closing in on her. Another girl desperately shouted for her to look behind. The fallen girl turned her head, and sheer terror filled her eyes as she saw the tiger with its jaws wide open, ready to strike. But just as the beast lunged, she vanished, teleported away in an instant. The tiger itself froze in shock, unable to comprehend what had happened. The girl reappeared next to Kim, saved just in time by his ability. Looking at her, Kim let out a breath of relief. That was too close, but at least it bought them some time. A system window suddenly appeared before him. You've discovered beings that meet the requirements of being taken in as citizens. Would you like to grant them citizenship? Before Kim could respond, Byung-go teleported in as well, carrying his grandmother on his back. As soon as he arrived, he pleaded with Kim to take care of her. Kim, however, told him to wait a moment. Byung-go was confused and asked why, but Kim remained silent. After a brief hesitation, Byung-go sighed and nodded in agreement. Now, Kim turned his focus back to the tiger. As he considered his options, a thought crossed his mind. Could he actually kill the red tiger using his new ability? Meanwhile, the tiger was still chasing the others. Dongan, now frustrated, turned around and threw a ball with full force at the beast. But the tiger dodged effortlessly, barely fazed by the attack. With a deafening roar, the tiger sent chills down the group's spine. One of the girls trembled in fear, realizing that escape might be impossible. As the tiger closed in on Dongan, panic set in. He had no idea what to do. Desperate, he turned and ran with everything he had, but the tiger relentlessly pursued him. Just as the beast was about to strike, Kim activated his new ability, Invisible Hand. In an instant, a mysterious force gripped the tiger's throat and began lifting it into the air. Dongan and the others watched in shock, unable to believe what they were seeing. At that moment, a system window appeared before Gaon, leaving her equally stunned. Kim, observing everything from a distance, thought to himself that he didn't even need to be there personally. As long as Gaon was hunting, he would receive 4 times the loot. Gaon, now fully prepared, readied her bow and arrow. The tiger was completely immobilized, unable to resist. With fierce determination, she aimed and fired. The arrow pierced through the tiger, and with that, the beast fell lifeless. Kim's system notifications flooded his view. You have hunted a red tiger. You have obtained a large amount of EXP. 63,211,776 won has been deposited into the wallet of Ultimate Shut-In. Byung-go, Gaeong, and Hyeon's trust and loyalty have increased. Donggin's loyalty has surpassed 30. He has met all requirements to be registered as a vassal. A wave of satisfaction washed over Kim. Without hesitation, he registered Donggin as his vassal, securing yet another valuable ally. After the intense battle, the healer girl began treating Yeonju using her healing ability. Kim watched her work and thought to himself that they had been extremely lucky to have found Kim De-jung at the right time. Turning to Donggin, Kim asked what had happened and why the red tiger had appeared. Donggin explained that Byung-go's grandmother's house had been located within red tiger territory. They had successfully taken down one tiger, but it turned out that there was another one lurking nearby. Hearing this, Kim realized why something had fell off. Thinking back, there had been no goblins in that area. If goblins had made their nest there, Byung-go's grandmother wouldn't have been safe. It was pure luck that she had been in red tiger territory instead. Just then, a system notification appeared. Gaeong's quest results are being evaluated. 73,312 won has been used for the quest. Meanwhile, the healer finished her work and happily announced that Yeonju was healed. Kim thanked her, but she simply replied that it was no big deal and then asked if she could go back home now. However, Kim requested her to stay a bit longer. Elsewhere, Hyeongjin hesitated before speaking up. He admitted that he knew this wasn't the right time, but he was concerned about something. Would they always be gathering at his house? Kim assured him that there was no need to worry and that he would now explain what was going to happen next. He then addressed everyone, informing them that Unit 2901 was currently empty. It would be supplied with electricity and all necessary utilities. So from now on, they should live there. Next, Kim turned to Dabin and told her that Units 2101 and 2102 were also vacant. He would provide electricity for those as well. He then asked her to inform the other survivors that they could use those units' showers and toilets. Dabin agreed without hesitation. Kim continued, suggesting that if she wanted, she and her brother could share one unit, while the rest would be assigned another. Both Dabin and her brother were shocked by the offer. Then Kim made another request. He wanted Dabin to act as a messenger between him and the other survivors. This surprised her even more. Kim explained further. He told her to announce to the survivors that the team that killed 100 goblins the fastest would be rewarded with an empty house. That house would come with unlimited electricity, water, gas, and food. Additionally, if a team accepted 10 new survivors, those survivors would also receive the same benefits. However, he made it clear that the time needed to provide these perks would depend on which floor the survivors lived on. With that, Kim made up his mind. From now on, only those who proved their worth would receive what they needed. A system window then appeared, displaying the details of a new quest. Quest: Hunt 10 Goblins. Time limit: 168 hours. Reward: small amount of EXP. Failure penalty: prohibited from using shared facilities. A few days later, a man was seen running frantically with a horde of goblins chasing after him. The goblins appeared enraged, while the man screamed in terror. Just as they were about to catch him, he dashed through a gate and shouted for his teammates to execute the plan. Inside, his teammates were already prepared, standing with weapons in hand, waiting for the goblins to enter. The moment the goblins rushed in, the group attacked fiercely, knocking many of them backward. Some goblins even tried to flee, but the team shouted for them to be chased down. Their leader stepped forward, grinning, and suggested showing them something fun. He took his weapon, got into position, and unleashed a powerful strike on one of the goblins, piercing it straight through the chest. Excited, he turned to his teammates, asking if they had seen his attack, then inquired about how many goblins they had taken down. One of them reported 22 kills, while another boasted 23. Pleased with their efforts, the leader pointed out that just the three of them had managed to kill over 100 goblins. Another teammate, in disbelief, asked if that was really how many they had defeated already. Laughing, another remarked that he thought it would take forever to reach 100 kills. However, not everyone was happy. One of their teammates, furious, yelled that they were told it would only be 10 goblins at most. The leader's expression darkened as he turned toward him, demanding to know what he was complaining about now. The frustrated teammate snapped back, questioning if it really looked like there were only 10 goblins. Another teammate dismissed his anger, saying the outcome was good, as they were about to win a new house. But the angry teammate wasn't convinced. He shouted that he almost died because of this plan. Hearing that, the leader lost his patience. He reminded everyone that it was his idea to hunt like this, that the twins had crafted the spears, and that the one complaining had claimed to be confident in his speed. The man, now nervous, didn't respond. The leader then issued a threat. If he was so unhappy, he could be removed from the team, as his presence made no difference anyway. One of the teammates tried to calm the situation, telling the leader to relax, while another praised the angry teammate for being incredibly fast at luring the goblins in. Still, the leader remained annoyed, muttering that the guy always pissed him off and had no right to talk back. Another teammate advised the man to apologize quickly, which he reluctantly did. With the issues settled, the four of them headed toward the 21st floor to claim their reward. Upon arrival, however, they discovered that another team had already claimed the prize. The leader was shocked, unable to believe that someone had killed 100 goblins before them. Frustrated, he turned to Dabin, demanding she stop joking and hand over their reward. But Dabin remained firm, insisting she wasn't joking. At that moment, the winning team arrived. Dabin pointed toward them, revealing who had slain the first 100 goblins. The group stared in shock. The winners were none other than Dabin's brother and 2 others. Curious, Dabin asked her brother how things had gone. He explained that instead of taking the new house, they had negotiated a deal. In exchange, his house and Mr. Jiho's house would receive electricity, food, and other supplies, and Jiho's daughters would be exempt from quests. Hearing this, Dabin questioned why the girls needed exemption, as they were underage. But the 2 adults with her brother laughed, revealing that Jiho's daughters were actually adults. They just looked young for their age. The woman smiled and commented that their daughters had probably inherited her talent for archery, but their father worried too much. Dabin's brother confirmed that the girls had also been promised bows and arrows for hunting. She then asked if they planned to keep hunting goblins, to which her brother nodded, explaining that Kim had requested them to clear out nearby goblins. As the conversation unfolded, the frustrated team leader suddenly snapped, accusing them of favoritism. He shouted that as the ones in charge, they were being unfair. However, Dabin's brother calmly replied, agreeing that it might seem unfair. To balance things, Kim had ordered that the 2nd and 3rd teams be sent to the 30th floor to claim their rewards instead. Dabin turned back to them with a smirk, confirming the arrangement and instructing them to head to the 30th floor where Kim would be waiting. Left with no other choice, the team leader remained silent. As the 4 of them headed toward the 30th floor, they casually discussed Kim among themselves. One of them remarked that Kim seemed younger than them. Their leader laughed, finding Dabin's respectful tone toward him absolutely ridiculous. The other 2 chuckled, joking about whether she thought of Kim as a god. One of them sneered, calling it nonsense, and dismissed Kim as nothing more than a cult leader. However, the 4th member, who had earlier argued with the leader, spoke up from behind. He pointed out that they were all benefiting from Kim's abilities and questioned if they even had the right to criticize him. After all, everyone was trying to win his favor. Hearing this, the other 3 turned to stare at him, their expressions shifting. The leader looked especially irritated, as if he was about to say something in anger. Before he could speak, though, they arrived on the 30th floor. Just as they were about to proceed, Kim suddenly appeared, walking toward them with a smile. He greeted them casually, his tone friendly yet composed. Instantly, the group fell silent. Their leader, Baek Sunjiob, took a step forward and extended his hand, formally introducing himself. Kim shook his hand and immediately praised their hunting strategy. He noted how they had used the barrier to their advantage and commended them for executing the plan effectively. Sunjiob, however, was caught off guard. He wondered how Kim knew all of this. Before he could ask, Kim still smiling, announced that he would now provide electricity, water, and gas to Units 1301 and 1502. Sunjab was shocked. He quickly asked if that was really possible. Kim confirmed it without hesitation, explaining that since they had killed 100 goblins, they had earned the privilege. Then, with a slightly eerie smile, Kim addressed the earlier conversation. He clarified that he was not a cult leader, nor did he have any desire to become a god. At that moment, all four of them tensed up, visibly unsettled by his words. Kim's expression then turned serious as he added that he had a request for them.